Good morning. I'm supposed to be having lunch now, and I am behind on a bunch of things. But I wanted to come to you hot off the presses with this fresh idea. I've been reading Interaction Ritual Chains. This is Randall Collins' work, extending. He's building from Durkheim, and then Goffman, who I've been talking about a little bit on this channel, and he's creating this idea. Anyway, he talks about smoking. And I want to use this to argue or think about arguing that YouTube is or might be an addiction. And this comes from people telling me again and again and again that they're addicted to certain forms of digital technology. And most often, this is people talking about porn. I'm not talking about porn. I'm talking about right now YouTube videos, creating content, streaming content, participating in live streams, people leaving online groups like this little corner of the internet and then coming right back. I wonder, is YouTube an addiction? Okay, so I'm reading Randall Collins, and he's talking about smoking. He says he's arguing that smoking isn't just a chemical addiction, not just a dependency. The way that takes shape comes from social factors. It's socially constructed. And so he builds this argument saying that the anti-smoking movement existed before we knew about these medical problems caused by tobacco or the addiction caused by tobacco. People were trying to quit, making a point of quitting smoking. And then he also talks about the way that people learn to smoke, right? The practice of smoking took place before widespread advertisements for cigarettes. So people were actually learning to smoke from each other by observing and participating with each other. Collins tells us about how smoking became a practice. He says that, let's see, I made a couple notes here as I was reading this. Tobacco smoking sustains itself among a core group of committed users by the same social processes that have always supported it. So people continue to smoke, even though it has problematic things. And then he says, and this is a point made by Howie Becker about marijuana as well, the bodily experiences themselves differ depending upon the social ritual in which those experiences are enacted. So there's different ways to smoke, of course. And your experience of smoking or really taking in any substance is not just your own experience, it's that experience, and some people talk about this in terms of extended cognition, the experience that you observe other people having and the experience that other people tell you to expect to have. It's not just yours alone. And there's studies about this in terms of alcohol consumption as well, that feeling drunk or thinking that you're drunk is really often a social phenomenon. And you can feel that way when you're given clues in your environment that you should feel that way, maybe regardless of whatever you've consumed that evening. So let's see, he gives an example about decaffeinated coffee. You know, people think that they can't sleep with regular coffee, and he argues that could be socially constructed. He's talking about, there's something really important here I wanted to share. Smoking is what he calls a boundary marker. It gave a social definition to what an individual was doing alone, establishing a membrane around that activity that others understood and respected. So it takes a particular part of people's lives, and they take it in their regular lifestyle, and it becomes part of what he's calling relaxation rituals. And he tells us what types of rituals are involved in that. So those are social things. Those are not related to the substance itself. So he makes a very good case that social things can be addictive. And I know tons of people have experienced this gamer addiction. So I'm not coming in here saying, oh, this is something new. I'm saying this is one way that we could explain theoretically what's happening, this comparison to smoking. Um, so there's some other things going on here. He says persons can become addicted to particular kinds of social rituals, which have nothing to do with ingesting substances. He talks about gambling. He talks about becoming a workaholic, becoming a sports junkie. So he really sets the stage for thinking about, like, well, something like getting on YouTube or making content, creating content, or live streaming. Well, that could be an addiction too. Um, so, yeah, I just wanted to extend his argument here. I was kind of blown away by the comparison I saw on some of the ways of forming rituals that he was talking about with smoking, and then some of the rituals that I'm seeing develop online in online communities. Things like how we engage in the hive mind, things like how we talk to each other, things like the types of conversations that happen on the Discord, fitting in with a broader range of theories too about how there are intended and, like going for a smoke, right? You might just be having a good time with a buddy, right? But really, maybe what happens during that smoke break is some kind of important conversation about your spouse, or some kind of important conversation about your goals or your religious orientation, or some shit that went down at church, or whatever it is. And so I wonder if there's a case to be made following Randall Collins that YouTube is an addiction. Okay, tell me what you think. Tell me if you think this is a good direction to go for a chapter of my dissertation. Looking forward to hearing from you. And I have heard from so many people already about different theoretical perspectives I could take with my dissertation. Okay, thanks.